A quick update in the Quadajah Johnson murder case. There's been another major development in the case, and this time it's coming from the appellate court. I'll tell you what they said and how quickly Judge Clancy's trial court responded.
When people do the most, I do the analysis. Let's go.
The Illinois Appellate Court has officially issued its mandate on July 10th, basically reminding Judge Clancy's trial court, remember when we said you have to come up with conditions for Quadajah's release? Well, now that the Illinois Supreme Court is officially out of the picture, it's time once again for you to come up with those conditions for pretrial release. And just 3 days later, Quadajah Johnson's court date was moved up from July 23rd to July 16th. So, what does this actually mean? It's exactly what you think it is. First, it's important to understand that this mandate is not a new ruling. The only reason things were stalled is because the prosecution filed a stay of the mandate, which the appellate court approved to give the prosecution time to further appeal the detention issue to the Illinois Supreme Court. Well, we all know how that turned out. The Supreme Court refused to hear oral arguments on this detention issue, so they denied the state's PLA. Well, the appellate court already ruled back in April that Quadajah's pretrial detention order should be reversed and that the case should be sent back to Judge Clancy's trial court. However, Clancy couldn't act on that decision until the appellate court officially issued a mandate, or an order, if you will. The stay is over. The Supreme Court didn't get involved. So now this last mandate on the detention issue just came from the appellate court on July 10th. The appellate court is essentially saying, we're finished with this issue. Judge Clancy, you now have jurisdiction again. It's your turn now to move the case forward. And shortly after that issuance, the Cook County Court moved Quadajah's hearing up by a week from July 23rd to July 16th. Now, that timing makes sense because now the trial judge has the legal authority to carry out the appellate court's instructions. So, what can we expect to happen on July 16th? Well, I noticed that the July 23rd status hearing is still on the docket. So, this upcoming hearing could be strictly for pretrial release. A detention hearing, if you will. For sure, Judge Clancy is expected to address the conditions of Quadajah's pretrial release on July 16th. This is not whether she's guilty or innocent. That will happen at trial. I know I say this over and over again, but sometimes redundancy is good if it shows that a point is a compelling one. And we are far from a trial date at this point. Once again, the release conditions could include electronic monitoring, travel restrictions, no contact orders, or other requirements that the court believes are appropriate while the criminal case moves forward. If release conditions are set and all requirements are met, Quadajah Johnson could potentially be released after the hearing ends on July 16th or shortly thereafter. I want to clear up a misconception that I'm seeing online. This mandate does not dismiss the murder charges. As foolish as that may sound, some people have convinced themselves and others that this case is headed towards dismissal or some kind of acquittal. Another piece of misinformation going around is that the appellate court found Quadajah Johnson innocent. That's not true. The appellate court believes Quadajah is safe for pretrial release. She qualifies under the Pretrial Fairness Act, and that's the only reason she's being released. Not for pregnancy, not for any other reasons. She fell under the guidelines for pretrial release, and that is why it's being granted. The only issue that's been decided is whether the state proved that Quadajah Johnson should remain detained before trial. The appellate court said that the state did not meet that burden. Now, some people confuse the burden of proof that Quadajah's a danger with the burden of proof that she's innocent of murder because of her self-defense claim. Once again, Quadajah Johnson is presumed innocent until or unless she's proven guilty by a court of law. So clearing up all that confusion, the trial court, Judge Clancy's court that is, must determine the appropriate conditions for Quadajah Johnson's release while the criminal case continues. She'll continue fighting that case, but she'll be fighting it with her legal defense team outside of the Cook County Jail. Now, before I go, I have to say this. Some of y'all in the comments are confusing me with a fangirl. I'm a content creator, a paid blogger, and I put a lot of effort into researching cases and bringing you the updates as they unfold. My effort includes an investment of time, researching the facts, and content development. What it does not include is my feelings. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who can use this message. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and leave me a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. What do you think will happen at the July 16th hearing? Meet me in the comments. We can continue the conversation there.